Good day, everyone. In this video, I want to cover Cyril Ramaphosa's speech the other night where he so-called dropped the state of disaster, but still had certain things ongoing for another 30 days in a transitionary period, as he called it. And I want to talk specifically about the new health bill that he spoke about, that Joe Fala is really trying to push down our throats, and as we know that he hasn't got the capacity to write something like this. So it's clear that the people that are coming up with this bill are people that want to make sure that they have full control and that their agenda is played out in South Africa. And this is the closest the government can come to actually force you through law to be vaccinated or take any medical treatment against your will. And this is very, very important. This is a very important transition. Now, I've been aware of this bill since it was published the first time around, and it was important to see how this was playing out because they're asking for public comment. But as we know, public comment doesn't mean much. And as Cyril Ramaphosa said in his speech, where he said the state of disaster is over now, but as I said in a tweet that night, the state is still in a disaster. Nothing has actually changed, and we need to change the political system, the governance system, as fast as we can. This is very important. I just want to go with you through a portion of these regulations so that you understand what they are proposing. Now, I said in my tweet that I hope that the government does not go through with this. I mentioned specifically KwaZulu-Natal, and I said that if you think what happened there was bad, that you would see that on a log scale. Now, for those of you that know math, will understand what a log scale means. And I mean this across the country, because if these regulations pass as is, and we don't know that yet at this stage, okay, these were up for public comment. They're supposed to consider the comment under the current laws and constitution and then make amendments to them. Now, hopefully they amend these portions I'll be speaking to you about now, because that line in the sand means war. The moment you cross that line, you are declaring war on the people of South Africa, because you're taking freedoms away that you don't want to mess with. You're taking freedoms away that will get people to rise up. And all I want is stability in this country. For us to achieve what we want, we need stability. We don't need instability. But the people of this country will do things to this country that this government probably can imagine, but say that they can never imagine. And, this is where the gameplay comes out clearly, because maybe they are trying to push the people, or their handlers are trying to push the people to a point where they just want to overthrow the government. And this is the last thing we need right now. We need stability. We need to have everything happen in the current system. When we lose stability in South Africa and civility breaks down, it is the worst circumstance that you can have. And there's many people pushing for this. So don't fall for that narrative. So when I discuss this with you, and I say there's a line in the sand, this is something the government should be keenly aware of, that you cannot force people to just take medical treatment. In South Africa, they will burn the country to the ground. I can tell you there will be nothing left of this country if you try and enforce this on people. The first couple of people that you take in under these regulations and treat like this, I can tell you now, this country will be no more. There will be nothing left, because this country is unique. Throughout its history, the people of this country are the most tolerant. They can take the most nonsense, but they can also be the most haragat. And if you mess with them, Cyril Ramaphosa, Joe Fala, they will not only come for you and annihilate you, and whatever that might mean. Look at KwaZulu-Natal. We don't want that to happen in the rest of the country, but you're going to bring it on the country. If you pass regulations like this and you enact things like this, there will be nothing left of South Africa. So please, remove this rubbish from the regulations. But let me cover it with you quickly. And I'm going to page 2 of a 19-page document. And I'm going to the schedule and the definition. And point 1, it says in the schedule, the regulations means the regulations relating to the surveillance and the control of notifiable medical conditions made under the National Health Act of 2003. So what they are saying, there's certain diseases or certain conditions that warrant very strict regulations and actions. Okay? This is Act number 61 of 2003 and published under Government Notice number 1434 of 15th of December 2017. And then they say insertion of regulations 15A to 15H. And we're just going to look at 15A and B. Number 2, the regulations are hereby amended by the insertion. So these portions they are inserting now is the amendment after regulation 15 of the regulations of the following regulations. And then they get into the nitty-gritty. And this is in commas, inverted commas, refusal of medical examination, prophylaxis, treatment, isolation, quarantine, and protocols in public areas and gatherings. And before I continue with that, you need to understand, like I said earlier, this is regulations relating to the surveillance and the control of notifiable medical conditions. Now, your hair should already stand on end when you actually hear things like this. You should be shocked out of your brackets if you want anything related to freedom. All this tells you is all the world powers needed was something that you don't have to see. And my father was absolutely spot on. You don't need nuclear weapons as a threat. You need something so small that you cannot see it, but gives governments around the world the control and the power, as Cyril Ramaphosa spoke of the other night. He said the Disaster Management Act gave them power to act, and that they cannot justify that power anymore. So they're going to give more power to the Minister of Health. And this is the sickening thing. They want to keep that control, but not them. They're puppet masters. They just enjoy the control a lot. So if you actually look at what it says here, refusal of medical examination, prophylaxis, treatment, isolation, quarantine, and protocols in public areas and gatherings. 15A, 1. A person who, then A, has been confirmed as a clinical or laboratory confirmed case as having contracted a notifiable medical condition listed in Annexure A, Table 1, 2, or 3. Now, we know that COVID-19 has been added to that. Okay? So, there are other diseases there too. They don't specify COVID-19, but I can tell you that they've added COVID-19 to this. And this is very, very significant. Because you can reason, should it be there? Should it be there at all? With Ebola and many other things. But let's continue. B, is suspected of having contracted a notifiable medical condition listed in Annexure A, Table 1, 2, or 3. Or C, has been in contact with a person who is a carrier of a notifiable medical condition listed in Annexure A, Table 1, 2, or 3. Okay? So all of those people may not refuse to. And then it lists 3 further points. Submit to a medical examination. So it's saying you may not refuse to submit to a medical examination, including, but not limited to, the taking of any bodily sample which may be authorized by any law. So they are saying that samples may be taken of you. And I continue, it gets worse. Be admitted to a health establishment, quarantine, or isolation site. Quarantine or isolation site. What does isolation site mean? They do not define this, which means that the politicians can make of this whatever they want. Or, the next point, submit to a mandatory prophylaxis, treatment, isolation, or quarantine in order to prevent transmission. Now, with this, they can do almost anything to you. They can literally make up a disease, make up anything they want, because they can just suspect and they can put you through whatever they want. If they don't like somebody, they can literally use this to do anything to you. Anything. They don't even have to prove. That you have any condition. Which means if Cyril Ramaphosa decides he doesn't like this one person using this bill or act, he can just say, well, I think this person, I have a suspicion that this person has one of these conditions, and can put that person through this treatment. And there's no recourse for you under the law. People, a line in the sand. This is drawing a line in the sand. We cannot allow this to happen. If this is enacted, we change everything. Everything changes instantly. And I'm sure the government won't be as stupid as going ahead with this. 15B, isolation or quarantine of persons. 15B1, any person referred to in regulation 15A. The first part we spoke of must comply with an oral instruction or a written direction issued by a medical practitioner, a person authorized by the medical practitioner. Now, who the heck is this? Who can the medical practitioner authorize? Is someone just going to rock up at your door and say, oh, GP so-and-so or whoever has authorized me to give you an instruction? So a person authorized by the medical practitioner, a nurse, or an enforcement officer. 2. Now the fun starts. A. Subject himself or herself to screening in order to determine his or her notifiable medical condition status. If you want to get rid of a portion of people, all you have to do is say, we want to come and we want to screen you because some practitioner said that you should be screened, and then based on that, they can tell you what your status is. You have no recourse. You can't demand that they show how they're doing the test. They can do to you what they want. This is martial law. If any of this is enacted, it is the same as martial law. You are at war with whoever is doing this to you. B. Voluntarily travel to or be taken to a health establishment or any other place for purposes of isolation or quarantine. What does that mean? What are these other places like? What can they do to you there? Well, we discussed it earlier. Let's continue. Or C. Quarantine himself or herself in accordance with such oral instructions or written direction pending the determination of his or her notifiable medical condition status as a precautionary measure to contain the transmission of the notifiable medical condition concerned. Now, they mentioned that last. People think of what this means. I know of you, a lot of you have already read this. You're already very frustrated. You're upset. You've given your signatures to many campaigns out there where people have asked you to sign that you are against this bill. This is much more than just this bill. It's a fact that they even put this for public comment. The fact that this was even put out for public comment tells you we need to do a lot more than just sign a petition. We have to do a lot more than just give public comment to this. I'm not saying you shouldn't do those things, but we need to do a lot more than that. If you do not get proactive on the ground and start speaking about changing the political system, the governance system that has allowed this, the constitution in this country that has allowed this, and if you think our constitution doesn't allow this, think again. I will cover an article by Advocate Pierre Vos, the Vos, which many people absolutely hate. But he understands that this constitution is written to screw us over. And yes, he is our public enemy number 1, 2, 3, and 4. Because he will use the current constitution against us. But just understand one thing. As many people that are out there that is fighting for this new order amongst us, there are millions, tens of millions of South Africans that don't fall for this nonsense. That is why the majority of South Africans have refused to be vaccinated. And now Joe Fala tells us that if we don't get to 70%, we can't drop all of these regulations. Where have we heard this before? In many countries, they have said that if you go beyond a certain percentage vaccinated, they can relax everything. We know they all spoke nonsense. It's not true. They are lying to you. and they are lying to you now as well, because we have not found any treatment, including vaccinations, that have stopped everything that they said it would stop. It has not been as effective. Now, I'm not telling people whether they should vaccinate or not vaccinate. I've always said I'm not an anti-vaxxer. What I'm saying is the government have lied about the effectiveness of anything that they've proclaimed. Anything they've proclaimed, they've lied about openly. And the scientific professionals in South Africa come up in their droves, making sure that they say clearly that they did not agree with the way the government rolled out their lockdowns, with the regulations they put in place, that they did not agree with many of these things. And I will still cover that with you in detail. It looks like YouTube has relaxed what they allow people to say, because people are saying incredible things out there that I have had my videos removed for. Maybe I'm just a target, an easy target for these people. I really want to thank you for listening to this, understanding what it means from my perspective, and for you to understand that there's a line in the sand. This cannot continue. We have to stop this from happening. This cannot happen. It cannot happen. Has to be stopped. Just like with hashtag Leave Our Kids Alone, where there was success and the government backtracked, we have to do the same here. We cannot allow this to go through. Thank you very much. Till the next video.